This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report, a show made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and with me, Sanders, going to give us this week's topics.
Well, the NFL draft is this week, actually today, if you listen to this when this drops. And Cade didn't win Rookie of the Year, and it's okay. It's all going to be okay. It's a Fan Report.
So before we get into the Lions and the draft and everything, let's kick it off with this Pistons topic just to get it through and get it out of the way. It should be a fairly quick one, I hope. Probably not.
Never quick with me and the Pistons.
True. But Scottie Barnes won the Rookie of the Year award. It was announced this past weekend, if I recall. Cade finished third in voting, if I'm correct.
Correct.
He finished third in voting, and he was even left off the ballot from three of the voters, which Franz Wagner had a good season, good rookie year, but he provided nothing but scoring. And Cade provided a hell of a lot more than just scoring, and provided scoring quite well. I don't see a reason why anybody could leave him off their ballot, and I'd go as far as saying that the three people who did leave him off their ballot, they clearly have an anti-Detroit bias and should just have their voting rights removed because you don't know ball.
I got to the point where I wasn't expecting Cade Cunningham to win Rookie of the Year. What I didn't expect was him to be as far out of the race as he ended up being. He only received 9 first-place votes as opposed to Scottie Barnes' 48, Evan Mobley's 43. So that was one part that irked me. But, yeah, for me, the part that pissed me off the most was how anyone who is considered knowledgeable enough about basketball to be voting on the Rookie of the Year award to be able to make an actual solid argument for Cade Cunningham to be left off their ballot if they've actually watched any Pistons games. It makes and Evan Mobley was left off the ballot too, which I don't get either. I don't see how you leave Evan Mobley off your ballot.
I think what hurt Mobley's case a lot was how much he struggled when Jared Allen went down, because then it made people believe, he's entirely reliant on Jared Allen. But Cade didn't struggle regardless of who was there, regardless of who was guarding him, regardless of whether or not he was double teamed, because he was double teamed more than any rookie in the league.
He was seeing Steph Curry levels of being double teamed as a rookie.
Yeah, he was, actually. I'm pretty sure that's very factual. This is why I've long believed that you should have to earn your vote for these awards, more so than it just being a bias contest or popularity contest. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of become that. Yes, and usually speaking, it does go to the best player. But there are years where you look at it and say, what the hell? This doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying Scottie Barnes didn't deserve it. He had a very solid, consistent, very good, consistent year. And if you want to just base it on consistency alone, sure. He was the most consistent of the Rookie of the Year candidates. And yes, he played on a successful team. But he also played with all-stars. He had Siakam. He had Anunoby. He had Freddie VanVleet. He had extremely good talent on his team. He was probably third or fourth option on his team. He still played well, don't get me wrong, but Cade was the number one guy. Yeah. Cade was the man in Detroit. And yeah, sure, the Pistons weren't a very good basketball team, but Cade was going up against the best wing defender on the opposition night in, night out. Scottie Barnes didn't see that level of defense. He didn't see the double teams that Cade saw. He didn't have to rely as much on himself to make plays happen. Cade did. Cade had to take over games. Scottie didn't.
I really do feel like, and I know it's been said 1,000 times at this point, but I really do feel like team success was heavily factored into this.
I do too. Just looking at the top 2 vote getters, yes, absolutely.
And Evan Mobley started losing steam as soon as the Cavs started losing, and I also coincides Jared Allen going down and Evan Mobley's production declining a bit with Jared Allen going down, but again, lost steam as soon as the Cavs started losing. Scottie Barnes is the only one that gained steam.
Right, and it was consistency with Scottie Barnes, and that's great. And going back to what I was saying,
I'm not coming on here and saying Scottie Barnes.
No, this is not a rip Scottie Barnes fest. It's more of a rip the writers who don't give the man who deserves the respect that he deserves.
Mm-hmm. I'm not mad Cade didn't win. I'm just mad at.
Oh, I'm a little mad Cade didn't win.
He was in this race, apparently.
I'm a little mad he didn't win, and I'm even more mad of how, like you said, how far back he was in the race. Like I definitely thought he was very close in this race. He was the best rookie from the All-Star break on. There's no question about it, and he was right there to begin before pre-All-Star break. He was right there, and there's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. So to say that he was this far back, I think that's straight up a lie. And that's why I say that you should have to earn your vote, your right to vote for these awards, because how many of these writers can honestly say that they watched Cade Cunningham play on a consistent basis? Probably not many. They probably just looked at the team record, looked at the stats and said, this is that. A lot of them didn't watch Pistons games consistently, and you know what? Fine. But if that's the case, then you shouldn't be voting on for a player or voting against a player that you know nothing about.
Yeah.
You didn't watch him play. And that's why I personally believe that front office staff or coaches should be the ones doing the voting for these awards.
I don't disagree
and
there.
if you want to include another angle to it, have front office, have GMs, assistant GMs, coaches, as well as the most respected writers in the sport who you guarantee watch all the games, watch all of these players play, be the only ones allowed to vote.
And like right now it's 100 sports writers, I think broadcasters.
Yes, and I'll promise you broadcasters from Sacramento aren't watching Pistons games.
Yeah.
Because why would they?
And I bet you 3 of the 9 of Cade's first place votes were James Edwards, Rod Beer, and Amari Sanko.
And as they should be. And frankly, I'd go even a step further. I off track, but sitting here, right now, would the GMs, and answer this honestly, in your opinion, would the GMs of Toronto or Evan Mobley, if Troy Weaver called the GM of Toronto or GM of Cleveland and said, hey, I'll trade you Cade for Evan Mobley or I'll trade you Cade for Scotty Barnes, would they take it? I'll give you a hint. At least in my opinion, 100% they would. 100%.
I was thinking it's just a second to think about team fit. I'm like, Cade fits anyone. Why am I even thinking about this right now?
100% they would take that trade. There's no doubt about it. And if they wouldn't, they should probably be fired. And sure, that's my opinion. Great.
That's the whole reason I'm not like super upset about Cade not actually winning a thing, because I am extremely happy with what we have in Cade Cunningham, and him not winning Rookie of the Year doesn't really take that away from me.
And it may work in our favor. He may come in next year pissed off and drop 30 bombs on everybody.
I hope he does.
In fact, I want to challenge him. I challenge him to come out fired up, to come out and prove the haters wrong, prove the naysayers, and say that I am the best player out of this draft class. I am the man, the upcoming superstar in this league from that group. If I were him, I'd feel a little bit disrespected.
Oh, more than a little bit. I would have felt a little bit disrespected if I lost in the close race. I'd feel a lot disrespected for the way I lost.
Fair. And agreed.
In other Pistons news, though, James Edwards of The Athletic released his latest Pistons big board, and I feel like there might be some disagreements on where the rankings lie here. He released his top 7 because that's basically the range of outcomes of where the Pistons could land. Did you want me to start from 7 or start from 1, Nicholas?
Start where you feel is best to start, because you have the list in front of you and I don't. I've not seen the list, so start where you think would be best to start.
So
for the purpose of the conversation,
with the obvious, then number 1 is going to be Chet Holmgren, which I don't disagree with. Obviously, we've talked about this. There's extensive risk, extensive upside. Number 2. Jabari Smith Jr. That hasn't changed from his last list. So far, 1 and 2.
No surprise there either.
We have our first jumper here, which isn't really a jump because at 3 last list he put out, he had Keegan Murray, which was a hot take. Now Paolo Banchero is back in that 3 spot.
Okay. All right.
And
I like Paolo. I just don't know if I love the fit. That's all.
I think it's largely due to his tournament performance.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
he did have a great
the
tournament.
guy showed up on a big stage.
4 is where Keegan Murray lands.
Really?
We haven't talked about Keegan Murray a ton.
Not probably because I don't really like him that much.
Like outside, like the way I view it, like outside of the top 4 prospects, everybody considers the top 4 prospects of who. I think Keegan Murray might be the most NBA ready scorer outside of that. But again, I do feel like Keegan Murray is kind of redundant with what we have in Jeremy Grant. And I guess the plus of that is if we were to draft Keegan Murray, that might light a fun under Troy Weaver to try to trade Grant for some assets.
I am in the belief that Jeremy Grant is not a part of the future of this franchise.
Yeah, me too. And like I'm that's what I'm saying. Like maybe if we draft Keegan Murray, that would make Troy Weaver more willing to trade Grant. But maybe
Troy Weaver would be the one pulling the trigger on that, so that would tell me he has a plan.
But I hope it also doesn't mean he would sell him lower than if we didn't trade him. If we didn't draft Keegan Murray. Anyway, number 5, Shaedon Sharpe, another riser. I know we've touched on Shaedon Sharpe. Are you enamored by the upside? I mean, this is a kid who was projected to be a number 1 pick in whatever draft he landed in. Obviously, coming out of high school, that's what the projection was. We never actually got to see him play a minute in college. Right. But there's still that number 1 pick type potential. It's just we've seen people have number 1 pick type potential and then kind of lose a ton of steam once they get to college. If we were to be sitting there at 5, do you think Shaedon Sharpe would be your pick?
Oh, man. The backcourt, the upside of the backcourt would be absolutely nasty. Like, my concern with Shaedon Sharpe is how long is it going to take to get him to reach that potential?
It's probably going to take, it's probably going to take him. And he's 18 years old. And
the comparisons that I've seen for Shaedon Sharpe, I love.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen Brandon Roy thrown out quite a bit. And Brandon Roy was a bona fide superstar that could have been one of the all-time greats if he could have stayed healthy.
I see Zach LaVine thrown out a lot.
Yep, that's another one I've seen. I like the idea of Shaedon Sharpe, and that's the thing when it comes to Shaedon Sharpe is that's all we have is an idea of what he can be. We have nothing to tell us that that's legitimately what he can be. We watched him play in high school. Mm-hmm. We've not gotten to see him play against the next level competition, and he's not gotten to play against that next level competition. Not at full game speed, anyways. Yes, he practiced with Kentucky, sure, but he hasn't gotten to experience competition at that next level in the SEC or in against an ACC team. Like he hasn't been truly challenged with his basketball game. So does he really know where his deficits are? Does he really know where his strengths are? Like, yeah, he probably has an idea, but is what, everybody knows that what worked in high school doesn't necessarily work at the college level.
Agreed.
And when you are in college, you're able to work on that and figure things out. So the idea of what Shaedon Sharpe could become is great, but I feel like there's just so much growth that has to happen in his game. It's going to take a long time.
I think a perfect example of like the kind of trajectory you can look at with Shaedon Sharpe might not be this extreme, and James Edwards points this out in his big board too, is Anthony Simons, in terms of the fact that Anthony Simons is another player that bypassed college. He's in his 4th season now in Portland and now starting to break out in a big way, but starting to break out. When we're looking at this team, like you also think of the fact that, okay, yeah, you could draft Shaedon Sharpe at 5. You stash him in the G League, not stash him, but give him extensive G League minutes for this season just to get just to really see what you have in him. But are you really willing? Do you think we're so far off on this rebuild that you'd be willing to wait maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years before you really get to see Shaedon Sharpe start to blossom? Like that's the question for me.
I'm in the mentality that this rebuild is starting to near an end. Like we have, probably one more year of growth to do, and then I think we should be starting to compete. And I probably am being optimistic, and we probably are 3 years away. If I want to be realistic about it, we're probably 3 years away. You give Cade some time, you give the rookie this year some time, you give Sadiq some time and Stu, and then it also opens up the door to free agency this offseason and next offseason with the cap space that we'll have. So yeah, I could be a little bit optimistic here, but at the same time, one, I'm tired of seeing losing basketball, and two, I truly believe that the guys that we have, if you add one or two big pieces to it, they can begin competing relatively quickly. Like Cade proved he can play in this league. Sadiq's proven he can play in this league. Yeah. So I don't think we're all that far away. Yeah. And with Shaedon Sharpe, it could take every bit of 4 years to get there. And if I were the Houston Rockets, I'd be more likely to, or the Orlando Magic, I'd be more likely to agree to go after a guy like that because he could be your cornerstone piece. He could be that guy, and you are willing to wait that long. But I don't know what the Pistons quite are. At least in my book, I'm not.
Now, on the positive side of this, though, like I did see a lot of people like on Pistons Twitter comparing Shaedon Sharpe to another Sekou Doumbouya situation, which I don't think that's a fair comparison. Sekou Doumbouya was an overseas prospect that was acknowledged as being super raw coming in.
You probably knew less about Sekou Doumbouya than you do about Shaedon Sharpe.
Way less. And Shaedon Sharpe was a much more highly touted prospect than Sekou Doumbouya ever was.
And you've had the opportunity with Shaedon Sharpe to at least get a close look at him with your scouting department. And versus Sekou Doumbouya, a lot of it was on film. Yes, you have scouts over in Europe, but they don't watch as closely. You don't have as many eyes on guys like Sekou Doumbouya as you do guys like Shaedon Sharpe. And that's just a fact. Like, we have more scouts here than we do there. So, yeah, I feel more confident that Shaedon Sharpe, albeit a project, will succeed in the right environment than I would have with Sekou Doumbouya. Yeah. Before we move on to the next guy, though, a little bit about Keegan Murray. And like, the idea of Keegan Murray does kind of, like, I don't necessarily love him as a player. Like, I don't know how much of a fit's there, just because he, again, is very similar to Sadiq Bey in the role that they would play there. Because you bring up Jeremy Grant. Well, Sadiq and Jeremy Grant prove that, they struggled at times to coexist. And I don't want to see another situation like that. I do like the comparisons that Keegan Murray draws. Pascal Siakam, a taller Otto Porter. Like, I like those comparisons. I think Keegan Murray can be a good player in this league. I don't know if I necessarily see a cohesive fit with this roster and with Sadiq Bey, because I want to see Sadiq Bey flourish in this team as well. But go ahead and continue with number 6?
Well, here's my last question for you. Shaedon Sharpe or Keegan Murray?
Oh, you bastard.
Assuming you're sitting at 5 and both are on the board.
It's going to really depend on what... I would have to have a closer look at this team to say, like, how ready are we? How close are we?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because if we're only 2 years away, it's Keegan Murray. If we're 3-4 years away, it's Shaedon Sharpe. Like... And that sounds silly to just be a year difference makes that big of a difference, but that's just a fact. Like, that happens that way. Because you look at 4 years down the road, well, we have to look at re-signing Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart. And that's a good problem to have, but it is a problem eventually, especially if you make a splash in free agency this offseason or next.
And I'll be honest with you, I also want to see what the combine brings, because I am very curious to read actual professional scouting reports on Shaedon Sharpe and not just me saying he's coming out of high school, so he's probably going to take a while to contribute. Like, I could be wrong, and he actually could be, I'm not going to say NBA ready,
a little bit more ready than we think.
Yeah, a little bit more ready than we think.
Yeah, and that's a fair assessment. Like, having actual NBA eyes on him and having our GM's eyes on him, that'll make a big difference. It'll give me some confidence or less confidence in Shaedon Sharpe's game as of right now. And frankly, to answer your question of Shaedon Sharpe or Keegan Murray, I like the idea of Shaden Sharp and Cade Cunningham a hell of a lot more than I
love
like
that
the idea of Sadiq Bey and Keegan Murray. Like the idea of Cade and Sharp, just how do you defend that? Two 6'6" guards that can do anything with the ball in their hands. Like you can't play defense against that. Like people say that the Splash Brothers are undefendable, and that's true, they are. But so would two 6'6" guards that can do anything you ask them to on the floor.
Yeah, I would lean Shaden Sharp and just pray to God I don't have to wait till like 2025 for him to actually be contributing.
Agree, 100% agree.
Number 6, another name we've discussed at length in the show, Benedict Mathurin. Do you like him being ranked below Keegan Murray and Shaden Sharp, considering this is a Pistons draft board?
I'm starting to see a theme with this draft board that it's more upside and potential, which honestly, because I feel James Edwards has much more of a
I think
feeling.
Shaden Sharp's upside is higher than Keegan Murray's.
I mean, I do too, but Keegan Murray is more is NBA ready, so there's a little bit of give and take there.
True.
So,
he's also like 4 years older than Shaden Sharp.
Yes. Looking at it, like I feel like James Edwards has much more of a feel on the pulse of this team. So if the Pistons are looking at more upside than they are, okay, we're ready to win in a couple of years. Maybe I'm just being overly optimistic, and this team's not going to be winning for 3 years. I don't know, but 4 years even. But I like Benedict Mathurin. I like him a lot. I think he's a really good basketball player. I think he's got a lot of potential there, and I like the fit with Cade as well. So I have zero issues with Benedict Mathurin being where he is. I don't know that I necessarily like him behind Keegan Murray. I'd probably flip-flop the two if I had to pick.
Yeah.
Personally,
I'd probably have them right next to each other. And I think James Edwards actually has a really good quote here.
Keegan Murray said, right next to each other?
Like Benedict Mathurin and Keegan Murray right next to each other. Because James Edwards in the article says, Mathurin is the guard version of Murray. Safe, reliable, NBA skills. Will he be a star? I highly doubt it. Can he be a star for 10 plus years? I think he can. Which, yeah, you could say that about both Mathurin and Keegan Murray. I mean, they're both super safe, not flashy picks, but I think one of them fills a need greater than the other, and that'd be Ben Math, in my opinion.
Yes, and that's why I say that I flip-flop the two, because I feel like Ben Math fills... Like, the Pistons desperately need a two-guard. If we were to get a two... Like, I'll be honest with you. If we were to get a two-guard, and we could convince Jeremy Grant to take more of a back seat with this team, if we could get Ben Math and convince Jeremy Grant to take more of a back seat with this team, and then sign a center that can play some defense... I think we could win with that team.
Yep.
I do. I think Jeremy Grant is a great defender on the wing and against a four, and I think you could absolutely win with that team. He's a guy you could go to as a fourth option on a team. Ben Math can play that number 2 or number 3. Sadiq Bey can play that number 2 or number 3. And you have your anchor down low. Like I absolutely think you could win with that team. And that's straight up just saying, all right, we're throwing 25 mil at Jeremy Grant and rolling with it. Now, that's not exactly what I want to do, but I think that team could win. I do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. You'd need a lot of things to pan right, but
yes, you would need all of your young guys to pan out.
Yeah. Now, as we get to number 7, there's one name I haven't mentioned. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah, and I've been looking for it, and it's been pissing me off because this is one of my favorite guys in the draft.
Yep. Number 7 is Jaden Ivey. Is this a little shocking to you?
A little bit. Yes and no. A little bit because he is a guy who has gone up and down draft boards like crazy. Like there are a lot of question marks with Jaden Ivey's game, and there are some inconsistency concerns with it as well, especially with his shooting. And I get that. I love the fit and the upside that Jaden Ivey brings. And not less the fit less so because we don't know entirely if he's going to fit with Cade, because we don't know if he's going to be able to work off ball as well as he, works on ball. So that right there probably is one of the reasons James Edwards is pushing Jaden Ivey, and why a lot of people have really kind of pushed Jaden Ivey down the list a little bit. Because there are question marks in that regard. We don't know if he's as good off ball as he is with the ball in his hands, and we don't necessarily want to take the ball out of Cade's hands. So that does raise a concern, and that probably is why he's been knocked down some boards. But personally, I think the potential in the player that's there with Jaden Ivey, I would probably put him up above every other guard in this draft.
Well, James Harwood's reasoning is twofold. He says that he has concerns about his decision making and playmaking in the half court. And he says defensively, he believes a lot to be desired. I disagree with that second point. I mean, yes, he wasn't like a lockdown defender in college, but I've always said defense is like 70, 75%, even 80% effort.
It's athleticism, size, and effort. And decision making. When
Jaden Ivey has shown that when he's locked in, he's actually a really good defender.
Yep.
It's just, can you get him to get that effort consistently?
You know what else is great?
We're building a culture here that we might be able to.
You know what else is great about a Jaden Ivey type situation?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need him to guard their first or second best offensive players. Probably not even their third. Why? Mm-hmm. Because Saddiq Bey's an outstanding defender. Cade Cunningham's an outstanding defender. And a good defender. And by the way, if we do end up keeping Jeremy Grant next year, he's an outstanding defender. So at worst, you have him guard the third best offensive player, and he's never really going to have to guard the best offensive guard on the other team because you have Cade to do that. Yes, size will make a difference in that matchup, but at the same time, you're able to move his matchup around because of what else you have. So the defensive, I don't want to say deficiencies because he is, like you said, he is a good defender when he's locked in, but the lack of there being a shutdown perimeter defensive ability with Jaden Ivey doesn't really bother me as much because we do have lockdown perimeter defenders with on our roster already.
And hey, guess what? If he decides to give less effort than desired, we have a damn good defender nipping at his heels at Killian Hayes.
Exactly. So. We can hide.
He doesn't have much of a choice.
If Jaden Ivey isn't going to produce defensively, we can hide that. We can mask it with guys we already have on our roster. So I'm not really worried about that.
Yeah.
Having Benedict Mathurin who can play lockdown defense would be great. That it's great to have a ton of defense on your team. But in all honesty, with today's day and age, I would probably prioritize an elite level scorer over an elite tier defender when you already have solid defenders on your team, because look at the league today.
Yeah.
You're not going to go back to 2004 holding teams to 70 points. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're lucky to hold them under 100 nowadays.
I miss those days of the Pistons
holding
team.
It was fun.
What was the streak? How many straight teams under 70?
Oh, I can't remember. That was a hell of a time though, man. Watching a team play defense like that was just fun.
If you're sitting at 4, assuming Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith, Paolo are all off the board.
So now,
I find
NBA
it hard.
DraftNet has Jaden Ivey going number 1 overall.
Interesting.
Yep. In their latest lottery, they had Houston as the number 1 pick. They took Jaden Ivey, which doesn't make sense to me, but whatever.
The Athletic did a mock draft with all the beat writers for different teams, basically picking for their team. And I think Houston was it the 5th pick, I want to say? And I might be misremembering what pick they were. Either way, they drafted Jaden Ivey. And I was sitting there, I'm like, how many athletic scoring guards do you need?
Okay, but see, what doesn't make sense to me is they already have Jalen Green.
So I'm saying,
they already have Kevin Porter Jr. They're going to add Jaden Ivey. So they're going to have 3 small guards.
And
something doesn't fit there.
The Houston beat writers making the argument that they can play Kevin Porter Jr. at the 3. I'm like, that's a disaster waiting to happen.
Isn't he like 6'5" at the tallest? Like he's not
6'4", yeah.
Yeah. Good luck.
Please do. Let him guard Saddiq.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, God, that'd be fun. Saddiq, could you imagine him backing his ass down? Kevin Porter would end up in the 3rd row.
But yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, if the Pistons are sitting there at 4, I find, and Jaden Ivey's on the board, I find it very hard to believe that we wouldn't take him there.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. Like you tell
Like
me.
I'm not seeing how you can put on a big board. You can put Jay Knight below.
So
Sharp
let's put
and
it this
Bendick
way:
the
we're
third.
drafting number 4. Let's say Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith, probably Paolo Banchero. In all reality,
Yep.
taking top 3. You've got Shaden Sharp, Ben Math, Keegan Murray, and Jaden Ivey available to you. You're taking Jaden Ivey out of that bunch?
Oh yeah.
I probably am too. And he I mean, I've long said he's one of my favorite players in this draft, and I love seeing him in a Pistons uniform. I agree with you. Like I would take Jaden Ivey in that situation. I think the scoring potential that's there is just titillating.
And yeah, and there's still a part of me that wants to say that I would really strongly consider Jay Ivey over Paolo, just because Paolo can be a black hole on defense.
And I'm going back to the point that I had with Jaden Ivey, though. I'd say the same is probably true with Paolo Banchero. You can hide that. The only concern I'd have is you go from black hole to black hole defensively if you also have Marvin Bagley on your roster still.
Yep.
So you have 0 defense at that position, which that's not necessarily a recipe for success. However, you do have Sadiq Bey. You do have Isaiah Stewart, who, depending on who he's matched up on, may or may not be a good matchup. But you do have Cade. You do have Killian Hayes. Like, you have good defense on your roster. It just would be a black hole at that position. But when it comes to Paolo Banchero, like, he does bring a lot. I would still say that the fit with Sadiq concerns me a little bit, just because they do play a similar role. Just Sadiq plays a hell of a lot more defense. So I probably would lean Jaden Ivey because of that.
Yeah.
And notice a theme here is I am not at all worried about the fit with any guard on the board. Why?
Oh, no, not at all.
Because Cade can play with anybody. And he's proven that. So it doesn't worry me if we take a guard, regardless of what he does or who he is on the floor.
So who's your 7 on this big board? Is it Keegan Murray? Or is it Shaden Sharp? Or
It's probably Keegan Murray. It's
Keegan
probably Keegan Murray. I'd probably put...
No, if like I was the Rockets, for example, Keegan Murray would be a lot higher on my board.
Oh, 100%.
Like
honestly, I'd
strictly a fit
probably
thing.
even put Shaden Sharp higher on my board. Like, I'd look at guys like Shaden Sharp because of the upside there. I'd look at guys like Keegan Murray because of, the type of player he is in the situation that, or the role that he plays. Like, those are, and Paolo Banchero would be a great fit there. Like, those would be the guys that I'd look at and say, all right, I can bring these guys in. But looking at Jaden Ivey, I don't see Ivey as a fit for the Rockets. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Ben Math would make more sense than Jaden Ivey. Unless you're telling Kevin Porter Jr. he's coming off the bench.
Right? So, like, oh, man.
Because I guarantee you they will.
If they draft Jaden Ivey, that roster makeup is going to make zero sense.
If that does happen, they will try that 3 short man situation for about a week and then realize, oh, my God, we're getting abused by small forwards.
what's worse, that or when the Pistons tried out 3 bigs with Josh Smith, Greg Monroe, and Andre Drummond?
Yeah, that was abysmal too.
I want to see those 2 teams go at it.
Josh Smith, when he played for the Hawks, could masquerade as a 3 for about 10 minutes a game. And then you went, okay, he's actually a 4. And it worked for them for a time period. But that was when he was super athletic and young.
And it was strictly matchup based when they would drop him down to 3.
Yes. Versus
He was very much predominantly a 4.
Yes. Versus with Detroit, if you dropped him down to a 3, he was not as athletic. He stuck around the 3-point line and brick threes like it was his day job. Oh, wait.
I still remember that press conference when Joe Dumars introduced me to Josh Smith, and they were asking him about like what the fit with the team is. Like, are you going to have him play the 3? And Joe Dumars said the most wrong answer I've ever heard. Which is the way today's NBA is going is it's becoming a positionless league. You just put your best players out there, which is right, but that doesn't mean you put 3 guys who can't shoot. Just because they're your 3 best players theoretically. The lineup still has to make sense.
Yeah, like no, the mantra that the league is a positionless league is. I don't want to say it's a fallacy because part of it is true. Like guys like Jokic make that true. Guys like LeBron make that true. However, like
But the fallacy is when you approach it the way Dumars approached it.
Five guys under the height of 6'5".
Yeah.
You have to have a big in there.
You're going to get killed.
Right. You have to have people of the, general size of the position that can play the position.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, you have, it's more so become like a wing, ball dominant player, center league. That's what it is, which is still positions.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's become a 3-point shooting. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah. Anyway.
But that's all I have on the Pistons. I thought it'd be fun to go up and down that big board a little bit and give our takes.
Shall we switch over to the Lions here?
Let's do it.
All right. So obviously, guys, this week is the NFL draft. Lions are picking number 2 and number 32 on Thursday, and then they will be picking 34 on Friday. There's been a lot going around on on who the Lions are going to be picking, and I'll be honest with you, this is one of my more fearful years for the Lions draft because of the fact that there is so much room for, I don't want to say bust, but like less success than that is possible, because I feel like we have less of a pulse on, okay, this guy is definitely the guy. Like, there is any number of like 4 or 5 guys that have been mocked to the Lions at 2, and probably even more than that.
I've never
in all several different positions. I've never had less of an idea of who the Lions are picking than I have this year. And that kind of scares me a little bit. And frankly, like, my thoughts are that I'm worried because, like, the guy that I want the Lions to take, and I've been pretty vocal about that at number 2, is Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, I like Kayvon's upside. I think he can be a game changer. And no hate on Aiden Hutchinson, because I think he's going to be a good football player. I just think the ceiling is lower with Hutchinson than it is with Thibodeau.
I've accepted the fact that we're not going to take him, and accepted the fact that we're probably going to take Aiden Hutchinson at 2.
Which, if that's the case, I'm not going to be that mad. Like,
if I had to put money on something, that's what I'm putting it on. Aiden Hutchinson,
most likely. I would not be disappointed if we took Aiden Hutchinson. He is going to be a good football player. I think there would be a little bit left to be desired in terms of what could have been with some of the other guys. But when it comes to Hutchinson, he's going to be a good football player. And my whole thoughts are, if you take Aiden Hutchinson, I want to see the Lions get aggressive with their second pick. I want to see them trade 32 and 34, move up maybe into the teens, and go get somebody else that's highly regarded in their draft board. You know, a Jordan Davis, a Drake London, a Kyle Hamilton, somebody else who in their draft board is way up there. Because there's guaranteed to be somebody fall outside the top 10 that they really like. And you have the power at 32 and 34 to move up into those mid-teens and go get that guy. I also want to see if the Lions are willing to trade out of that 2 spot. I think they are. I just think we have to find somebody that's willing to bite. If the Giants come a-calling saying, here's 5 and 7, we want 2, sweet, take it. Because then I have a chance of possibly getting either Hutchinson or Thibodeau at 5. And then at 7, I can look at Kyle Hamilton. I can look at Jordan Davis if I wanted to. I can look at whatever. There's a lot of options at 7 there, too. If the Saints come a-calling saying they want to trade their 2 draft picks, I'd do it. Like, I want to go after... I look at in this draft, I want to find more value with more picks than necessarily go after... then zero in on one singular guy at number 2, because I don't think that there is somebody in this draft that is necessarily worth zeroing in on.
I mean, I agree. I feel like we've said this every show now, but like this feels like one of the weaker draft classes in recent memory. And when that scenario happens,
we've said that there's going to be 7 Hall of Famers come out of it.
So I'm saying, like, when someone says that, it usually means it's not a top-heavy draft class. It usually means there's no like standout prospects at the top. Doesn't mean that the class as a whole sucks. But yeah, when you hear a draft class referred to as that, my natural inclination is always, all right, let's just throw as many darts at the board as we can. Like, this is not a draft class that I'm comfortable investing all my draft capital at the top and then calling it a day.
Right.
I don't know if you can this is the type of draft where you can pick your spots like that. I think this is one you need to accumulate as many as possible and hope some sticks.
The problem is probably a lot of teams have that mentality, so you're going to struggle to find suitors at 2 because nobody really wants to give up multiple first-round picks to go up there. And the options from there are even limited because there's only so many teams that have multiple first-round picks.
Just wish there was a team that was in love with Aiden Hutchinson or something that would be like, we'll trade.
And maybe there is. I don't know. But either way, there's not too many picks the Lions could go with, even if they were to keep their number 2 pick. That makes sense. That would realistically disappoint me. If you told me right now the Lions were going to be aggressive and end up with Aiden Hutchinson and Jordan Davis in this draft, I would be ecstatic. Absolutely ecstatic. Or Kayvon Thibodeau and Jordan Davis, or Kayvon Thibodeau and Kyle Hamilton, or Aiden and Kyle Hamilton. I would be absolutely ecstatic because that told me that the Lions have a mindset and they want to be aggressive to go get top tier talent. Because that's something that this team, and especially on the defense side of the ball, that they're missing. They don't have top tier talent. And I don't necessarily know that Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau or Kyle Hamilton can be that, but they're regarded as that. Coming into the league, they're thought of as potentially being top tier talent. So then the question is, okay, so why won't you take Jordan Davis or Kyle Hamilton at 2? Well, because you don't take safeties and interior defensive linemen at 2 unless they're Aaron Donald.
Which neither of them are.
Jordan Davis is a damn good football player. I want him. I just don't want him at 2. Same with Kyle Hamilton.
This is what you just said is a lot of the reason why I'm such a proponent of trading back, because there are players that I feel like would be a good fit with this team. It just doesn't make sense taking this high. But also, like you said, you got to find a team willing to trade up to 2, and that might be a tall order this year.
Right. And
the best years to trade back are when you're near the top and don't need a quarterback, and it's a year where there are some quarterbacks. Those are the best years to trade back.
Absolutely. And honestly, I will probably find myself getting more frustrated with the 32nd pick on Thursday or the 34th pick on Friday than I will be number 2. Because number 2, I firmly believe the Lions are going with Aiden Hutchinson there. I mean, you look at CBS mocks, I'm pretty sure every single one of the analysts has Aiden Hutchinson going to the Lions.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
Which, if that happens, I'm not overly disappointed. I'm not upset. But looking at the mocks on CBS, they have us going Jason, I think that's Peter from Baylor, the safety at 32. Okay, that's fine. That's a need. I'm not overly upset with that. But then they have Sam Howell at 32 to the Lions, or Desmond Ridder at 32 to the Lions. That would piss me off.
Yeah.
I'd be more upset with that pick than I would be happy with the 2 pick, regardless of who we take.
I really do think that analysts that mock a quarterback to us at 32 or 34 it's not so much them understanding the Lions' position in terms of how many needs they need to fill. It's more so the fact that they're super uncomfortable letting this many quarterbacks slide out of the first round, and they want to get them off the board as quick as possible.
See, I would agree with you if it weren't for the fact that I see so many analysts mock a quarterback to the Lions at 32.
Yeah, because
and a lot of it is
it starts
Ridder
becoming a trendy pick.
And Sam Howell and Matt.
If you don't think analysts look at other analysts' mock drafts,
no, I know, but I want nothing to do with a quarterback at 32. I don't think I think you're looking at Christian Ponder or Curtis Painter at that point. And what the hell did they do in this league? They sucked big time. I would much rather. Here's a mock.
Wasn't Curtis Painter who the Colts tried out so that they could suck for luck?
I don't even.
Was Curtis Painter after that?
I think so, but. Here's a mock I don't necessarily hate. Aiden Hutchinson at 2, Daxton Hill at 32. You got the Michigan boys together. I don't hate that pick. Daxton Hill at safety at 32. That's a need. That's a need. And I know quarterback is a need. I get that. But you still have to pick your spot.
Yeah.
I don't want to... Maybe I just don't love the player, Desmond Ridder, and I don't love Sam Howell, but taking quarterback at 32 is not necessarily the way to get it done. And yes, I know the Lamar Jacksons exist out there, but there's not that type of player in this draft. There isn't a Lamar Jackson here. So I don't know. I would rather the Lions. I almost said the Pistons, but I would rather the Lions draft for need at 32 than just go quarterback. Like if you would have told me George Pickens 32, all right, Jahan Dotson 32, sweet. Like I don't hate the idea of a receiver at 32. We need one bad.
Yeah.
Safety, sweet. Corner, sweet. Linebacker, love it. Defensive lineman, love it. I don't want a quarterback there.
I feel you.
So let me ask you this question, and this is kind of changing topics here, but looking at the guys who were consensus picks inside the top 10, who drops out? Who falls to 11? That's a surprise.
I'd have to look back at the consensus picks in the top 10.
You're looking at guys like Iquanu, Hutchinson, Neal, Thibodeau, Sauce Gardner, Charles Cross is a name talked about a lot. Trayvon Walker, Garrett Wilson, Derek Stingley Jr., Kyle Hamilton.
You know, I'll stop you there. I guess I could see Kyle Hamilton dropping off because just because of the fact
value.
that the position he plays and the value that brings as a top 10 pick.
I don't necessarily agree with you there. I think Kyle Hamilton's a pretty good pick there. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Kayvon Thibodeau drops beyond 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think the upside's too great there. And the negatives about him, I don't know that enough teams buy into that because they're soft.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're so like you got to reach pretty far to buy into those negatives about Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah.
You really do. What would make you happy as a Lions fan this week?
Okay. I wouldn't be upset with a Aiden Hutchinson pick at 2.
I'm not saying wouldn't make you upset. What would make you happy as a Lions fan?
That isn't trading back.
Yes.
Like as in like who can we pick at number 2 that I'd be like, all right, I like that pick.
Yes. Is there any scenario where you would be happy with the Lions making a pick at 2? And this is a question I've had to ask myself multiple times this week.
I don't think so. Like, okay, because I agree with you. Kayvon Thibodeau would be my pick, but Kayvon Thibodeau's stock is dropped enough for like I wouldn't be able to help but feel like, oh my gosh, you could trade it back a few spots.
But like if there's no suitors, and
but
the
what I'm saying, like
the fact of the matter is there's probably not any suitors.
So like my best case scenario is taking Kayvon Thibodeau at 2. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's what would make me happy. Now, I'm not going to be unhappy with Aiden Hutchinson. Like, I'm not going to come on here next week and be like, Lions blew this draft, took Aiden Hutchinson at 2. No, it's an edge rusher. He's been one of the top 2 edge rushers this whole draft process. Actually, he's been the top edge rusher this whole draft process, according to most scouts and analysts.
Well, but once the season was played, yes.
Yeah. So, like, I'm not going to come on here and be like, no, they blew this draft by taking Aiden Hutchinson. But, no, yeah, the situation that make me happy is taking Kayvon Thibodeau at 2 or trading, or what would make me even happier is trading back and taking Kayvon Thibodeau or someone else.
I would love to see the Lions trade. Like, I look at those 2 Giants picks at 5 and 7 and say, yes, please. Please let this happen where we get 5 and 7 and trade back and we still get Thibodeau at 5. We look at
but
7.
Can you see the line? Can you see the Giants trading up to 2 though? Like
no, like I don't unless they really believe that Evan Neal is getting taken by the Texans, which is entirely a possibility, and they desperately want Evan Neal or Iquanu. Like if they want Evan Neal or Iquanu that bad, one of those 2 guys, and they're not happy with the other one, and they know the Texans are taking one, then they would.
So you're saying, let's say Jacksonville surprises people and takes Evan Neal instead of Iquanu with the number 1 pick. You could see the Giants trading up to 2 to take Iquanu.
If they want Iquanu that bad. And the reverse could be true with Evan Neal. Even if both are available, if they are in love with one and not necessarily with the other, I could see the Giants wanting to move up for that. The other team I would look to trade with is the Saints at 16 and 19. I'd look at that. They'd probably have to throw in like a 2nd-round pick or something to add to that, but I would be fine doing that. Give me 16 and 19. I can get, Jermaine Johnson or Jordan Davis and George
I could just
Karlaftis.
find receiver in that range too.
Drake London's a possibility. Garrett Wilson's or Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, those guys are possibilities. The options that are there at 16, 19, like that's where the door opens to Malik Willis in my book. That's where the door opens to a corner, a safety. Like I'm okay with taking Kyle Hamilton at 15. I'm okay with taking, Stingley Jr. at 15. Like I'm okay with taking a corner or a safety there or a quarterback. The book opens a hell of a lot more when you're in the teens than it does at the top of the draft because the positions that are there, I'm happy with. So I think the Giants would have to be seriously enamored with one of the offensive linemen to want to move up to 2 and have to know that the Jets or the Texans are going to be taking one of those guys.
All right, I have one question for you. So we both agree the most likely scenario here is Lions stay put at 2, take Aiden Hutchinson.
Yes.
What do you think is more likely? Taking Kayvon Thibodeau at 2 or Lions trading back with a team like the Giants or like the Saints?
I think it's Kayvon Thibodeau at 2.
Okay.
As much as I like to think that there's a lot that the Lions have a chance to trade back, I just don't think that there's that much want by teams. Like I don't think there's that much fire for teams to trade up because, again, like we've said, that the difference between the top player in this draft and the 10th player of this draft is nowhere near as big as it is in most years. Like there's just not. And because of that, teams aren't as eager to trade up. There's not a quarterback in this draft that gets people that titillated about, that excited. They say, I have to go get. Like, nobody's saying, I have to go get Malik Willis. I have to go get Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Does that mean they're going to be bad quarterbacks in this league? No. But they're not, they're not the Trevor Lawrences, the Justin Fields, the top guys in this draft that teams want to go and get.
I'm of the belief that I think the trade back is more likely, not saying it's anywhere near likely. I'm just fully convinced, unless the Lions are putting up the weirdest smokescreen of all time, I'm just fully convinced that we're not taking Thibodeau at 2.
I've read a few articles that have kind of said the Lions are enamored with Kayvon Thibodeau, and they are recent articles.
I hope they're right.
So I think that the smokescreen that they don't like Thibodeau is more of the case. I think, in my opinion,
what's the purpose of that? What purpose does that smokescreen serve? You're sitting at 2.
The likelihood. If I was the Lions, if I were to look at the Lions and what I think their draft board is, I think it's Hutchinson 1, Thibodeau 2, and then I think they have something like Trayvon Walker, Kyle Hamilton, Jordan Davis, probably like Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, Drake London.
So you're saying
Sauce Gardner.
If the Jags turn around and take Hutchinson number 1, you think it's a very likely possibility we take Kayvon Thibodeau?
I do. I do think that it is a very definite possibility that the Lions would take Kayvon at 2. The only one that's a wild card for me is Trayvon Walker.
Breaking news. Lions have picked up Hawkinson's 5th-year option.
Okay, all right. So we.
I don't think anyone's surprised by that.
No, I'm not surprised by all. I'd like to see Hawk stick around in a Lions uniform for a while. I hope to see a rebound year this year for him. But I think Hawkinson's a damn good tight end in this league, and I like to see him stay around for quite a while. So, not complaining about a 5th-year option pickup from him.
Yep.
Let me ask you this, because this is something that is a definite possibility for the Lions, whether it be they trade up to go get one of these guys, or they just take one of them at their pick at 32 or 34. Of the receivers, rank the receivers in this draft for me.
Rank them?
Yeah, give me your favorite receivers in this draft. Rank them.
I mean, Chris Olave has been my favorite receiver.
Really?
In this draft.
So he's the one that would be more likely the Lions could trade up into the 20s to get.
Yeah, and I know it's not a popular opinion. Like I'm fully aware that Chris Olave is not. Who is it? Is it Garrett Wilson that's still viewed as the top receiver in this draft? Garrett Wilson is
viewed as the top receiver. He kind of flip-flops quite a bit with Jameson Williams.
But yeah, for me, I probably go Chris Olave, then Garrett Wilson. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not as familiar with James Williams. I didn't watch as many Alabama games this year. So
how the hell do
and they
you
still
not watch
done-
Alabama games but watch Ohio State games?
Because
I
Ohio
guess
State's
you're
our
a big
division and
fan.
Alabama games are usually blowouts.
Fair.
And then I think Drake London would be my 4.
So keep going with it because I want to know who your guys towards the back end are because that's likely where the Lions could look at.
Well, Pickens is my 5, and from there,
Over Treylon Burks.
that's another guy that I haven't watched too much of.
Okay. All right.
I like his size, but like I
love
don't
his size.
like. Okay, let me tell you about Treylon Burks.
There's a lot of people who
In
believe
terms
Treylon
of-
Burks is better than Chris Olave. That's why I was asking.
In terms of a receiver that I could build in a lab for the Lions, Treylon Burks is that prototype.
So what you're telling me is you like Drake London.
Yeah, that's why Drake
Drake
London's,
London is that guy.
I feel like higher on my list than most people.
6'5", 220 pounds.
Like if we didn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown, I like Dotson out of Penn State too.
Jahan Dotson, he's another good one.
But I do feel like I don't want two smaller receivers opposite each other.
That's fair.
So-
Christian Watson's another name that's thrown out there a lot from North Dakota State. Personally, if I were to rank them, I would probably go with... Oh, man. I'd probably go Garrett Wilson. You know what? No. Here's how I'd do it. Drake London, number 1.
Interesting. All right.
I think the mix of size and speed with Drake London is just unreal. Like, he's 6'4", ran a 4... Like, okay, he's not that fast. He ran a 4.58, so he's not that fast. But, like, the size that's there and what the Lions need, they need a sizable receiver. I love that there. Number 2 would probably be Garrett Wilson. 3, Jameson Williams. I'd probably go Treylon Burks after that, and then I'd throw in Olave, and then I'd probably throw Pickens in. So, and Christian Watson probably after that. But Drake London, in my opinion, is probably my number 1 guy at receiver. And then I look at Garrett Wilson, but
Yeah, I've long been enamored with like both the Ohio State wide receivers. Like I don't know
Which
if the
is
system just
fair.
made them look better than they actually are, but those have been like my interchangeable 1 and 2 basically all year.
so besides the top 2 guys at edge between Hutchinson and Thibodeau, who do you like? Rank your next 3 at edge rush.
I don't know that I've looked at many edge rushers. I've Hudson.
So to give you
Thibodeau.
some names, you got
be
Trayvon
honest with you.
Walker, you've got Jermaine Johnson,
Trayvon Walker, I guess that would definitely be my 3.
you've got
if you want.
Jermaine Johnson, you've got David Ajabo, George Karlaftis is another one.
Oh yeah, I remember. Okay, I remember Karlaftis.
Trying to think of some more names here. I think that's all I got. At least that's generally thought of in the first round or top rounds, I should say, because Ojabo's looked at more as a second or third rounder after his Achilles. But so of those guys, who do you like the best?
You just remind me of Karlaftis. I forgot about him.
I think that dude can be a ball player. Like I like Karlaftis. If you were to tell me the Lions were to trade up into like the late teens to go get George Karlaftis or the early 20s, I'd be ecstatic. Especially if we didn't go edge rush with our first pick, or we traded back and we just I don't know. Like I'd be ecstatic with that.
But like I love Trayvon Walker, but
There's so much
What
to be desired there, though. Can this
what
dude
I'm-
actually
like-
play football?
what I'm looking for with an edge rusher is I think we
Get to the quarterback,
need-
which he doesn't
yeah.
do.
we need pass rush. Like we've actually been pretty solid against the run, and
At times.
like Jermaine Johnson has potential in that category, but like do I rank his potential more than because like Jermaine Johnson at least showed that he can do it. He just doesn't do it consistently. Trayvon Walker, I haven't seen anything.
Right.
But Trayvon Walker just the better football player.
Is he,
that's
though?
where-
Because we don't even know if this dude can play football. Like, I think the upside with Trayvon Walker is far higher than Jermaine
You
Johnson.
know what? Fuck it. Karloff, this is my 3.
Wow. All right. Hot take. We like it.
I've been
Big Ten
trying to
guy
like,
over here.
I've been sitting there trying to decide between Jermaine Johnson and Trayvon Walker for my 3, and I can't make the decision. So you know what? It's Karlaftis.
So I would probably go Trayvon Walker, Jermaine Johnson, and then Karlaftis. I think Karlaftis has the highest floor of them all, though. What's your dream scenario for the Lions? Give me 2 picks that would give you a dream scenario.
Well, okay. My dream scenario would be for us to trade back.
So we get 3 picks.
Let's say we trade back with the Giants, I guess.
Okay, that one's cheap because that one's easy. Let's say the best you could trade back to is the Saints at 16 and 19.
Okay. Trade back to the Saints 16 and 19.
You know what? No, it's a dream scenario. 5 and 7. Do it.
No. We'll do 16 and 19 because I think my dream scenario, if it might be, I might be reaching for people at 5 and 7 in my dream scenario. So
well, let's hear 5 and 7 then. I'm
okay, fine. So
because I think you very realistically can still get Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. My dream scenario here is 5 and 7. Number 5, you take Kayvon Thibodeau, and number 7, you take one of the Ohio State receivers or Drake London. You hit a high impact player on both sides of the ball.
Daxton Hill, safety.
That's a great point. What do you do?
Nakobe Dean if he's available. So here's how I'm prioritizing my 32nd pick. If I'm the Lions picking at 32, my draft board at 32 is.
Do you think there's any chance Karlaftis drops 32? I don't think so.
Highly unlikely. I think the chance is small, though. I don't think it's none like a guy like Hutchinson, but I think it's small.
Would you trade 34 and 32 to move up, let's say, 6 spots if Karlaftis is still on the board?
Yes, I would. Absolutely. Okay. I don't know. It depends on what we get it to. Because I don't know that I'd want both Karlaftis and Hutchinson.
I'm saying in my scenario right now, if you traded back from 2 to 5 and 7,
and we have Thibodeau
got Kayvon Thibodeau, and then I'll give you the receiver your choice, and then you move up from 32 and 34 to take Karlaftis. You effectively took 2 edge rushers in the first round.
Are Nakobe Dean or Jordan Davis still available? I would guarantee you Nakobe.
Jordan Davis, no. Dean, yes.
Probably not at that point. I'd probably more likely prioritize Nakobe Dean because of position. Personally, so here's probably what my scenario is, and this doesn't all-time dream scenario would be trading to 5 and 7, getting Kayvon Thibodeau in any combination of Jordan Davis or Kyle Hamilton at 7. Like that would just be, if you grab Jordan Davis, your defensive line is fucking set. You grab Kyle Hamilton, your defense upgrades big time. Then at 32. And then I would probably say, all right, screw it. Let's be even more aggressive. Let's trade 32 and 34, move up into the teens, and go get Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Treylon Burks, any of the top 4 receivers. That would be my dream scenario. You mean to tell me we would get Kayvon Thibodeau, Jordan Davis, and Drake London? Sold. 100% sold.
I like that.
That would be a dream scenario. And it's any combination of Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau at 2. And this is not trading the second. Well, this would be trading the second pick. So this is, if we were to draft at 2, I would say, drafting at 2, I would say I'd like to see the Lions be aggressive and trade up to go get Jordan Davis at 14, 15. And I think it's very possible because I think that's like the ceiling where you could go with that 32 and 34. If the dream scenario without trading 2 was drafting Kayvon Thibodeau and Jordan Davis, that would make me happy because that would solidify our defensive line, in my mind. Like, that would give us a potential to have elite play in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And I'm a big believer in building inside out.
Yeah. That's
my dream scenario there for the Lions, and that's not trading the second pick. Trading the second pick, oh, God, I would be so happy.
I really hope the Lions are like super active on Thursday.
I do too. Like I would. If you were to tell me if the Lions were to take like Aiden Hutchinson, and then they went at 32 and they grabbed Nakobe Dean, and then at 34 they grabbed George Pickens, I'd be pretty happy. Like if we were to go Lions straight chalk picks, that's my best case scenario. Like that's straight up. They don't trade nothing. They just take their picks. What I think could be there, I'd be happy with that scenario. Don't get me wrong. But if the Lions were to get aggressive and turn 32 and 34 into something, I'd like that a hell of a lot more.
Yeah.
Would you be happier with the Lions going Aiden Hutchinson, Nakobe Dean, and George Pickens, or insert quarterback, Desmond Ridder, at 32, or Malik Willis and the Lions trade up to go get George Karlaftis in the late teens, early 20s.
Okay, you're saying Malik Willis at 2?
Yep, Malik Willis at 2. You trade up to go get George Karlaftis at 19.
Or I get Aiden Hudson at 2, and then I get
Desmond Ritter,
not named Malik Willis at 32,
and
basically.
George Pickens.
Jesus Christ. Oh, my gosh.
So you have to take quarterback in this scenario. I won't even zero you.
What you're asking,
I'll say any quarterback.
Basically the question you're asking is, do I think the gap from Aiden Hutchinson to Karlaftis is larger than the gap from Malik Willis to the rest of the quarterbacks?
I mean, no. I'm asking you if you would be happy with which scenario you'd be happier with, because I don't think the gap necessarily
that's what it comes down
as
to.
much. It does, and if that's how you want to look at it, that's fair. I'm just saying, like, neither one of us really want a quarterback in this draft, but if the Lions are destined to take quarterback and they have to, what's the better scenario?
I'm going to go with the Aiden Hutchinson scenario because I think that's the best player of anyone you just named.
Okay.
And then, because I am not sold on any of the quarterbacks in this draft. Not that I'm like super sold on Aiden Hutchinson. Not that I'm super sold on Karlaftis either.
The pick
but
at 32. Because that's how highly I value the quarterbacks at that range.
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like you're throwing a dart at the board with any quarterback in this draft. Personally, Malik Willis is my favorite quarterback of the bunch.
I'm not ready to say that with Malik Willis. Honestly, I think there are two quarterbacks that have legitimate shot in this league, and it's Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis.
I'm just nowhere near high enough on Malik Willis to consider him at 2. That's all.
I would personally prefer Malik Willis at 2, George Karlaftis at 19. Personally, because I think the upside that's there is still pretty damn good.
Yep.
I think there's less of a gap between Hutchinson and Karlaftis than there is between Malik Willis and a guy like Desmond Ritter or Matt Corral or Sam Howell. Because I think you could potentially get 2 high-level players there. Now, that's not to say I would want the Lions to take Malik Willis at 2, because I don't. I don't want a quarterback in this draft personally. And if you heard our last episode, I sat here and told you why we should take Malik Willis at 2. Well, that was devil's advocate. I'm very good at it.
Yeah, you are.
I would much prefer Hutchinson over Willis, but in those scenarios, I want nothing. Like, I don't, at this point with the Lions, I don't want to waste picks. I don't think we have the ability to. Like, I don't want to. And I think taking a quarterback at 32 in this draft that isn't named Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis is a wasted pick. And I don't want the Lions to do that. So I would rather the Malik Willis, George Karlaftis route.
Yep. I mean, which is fair.
So would you be rather, and last question before we end up.
Okay.
Would you rather Hutchinson, Dean, Pickens at 2, 32, and 34, or Thibodeau and your favorite player at 16?
Wait. Did I trade back from 2 and I still
traded
landed Thibodeau?
Up from 32 and 34 to 16, and you drafted Thibodeau at 2.
So you're saying Hutchinson and either Dean or Pickett?
You
or
get
both Dean and
Pickens
Pickett?
and Dean and Hutchinson. You get all 3 of those guys. You took chalk with your picks.
Gotcha.
Or you traded 32 and 34 to go get a guy you really like that could be there at 16, and you drafted Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, it's definitely scenario 2 because I already like Kayvon Thibodeau more than Hudson, so that's already the win.
Go after Chris Olave at 16.
And if I were to go get any player I want, that player would not be Pickett or Dean. So
Pickens or Dean. I like both Pickens and Dean, and I'd be happy taking them at 32 and 34. Like, that is my ideal scenario with the Lions stay chalk with their picks, but I definitely would trade up personally. I would go get Jordan Davis, Kyle Hamilton, Drake London, Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, you name it. So, but anyways, do you have any other questions to add before we close out this week?
I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Will you be disappointed if we come out of the – well, would you be disappointed if we don't have a quarterback after pick 30? Not a quarterback, sorry, a wide receiver after pick 34?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't. Yes, I want the Lions to take a wide receiver, but I also have to understand the mentality that a wide receiver in the first round is I'm ready to win pick. Like, we have so many holes defensively that as long as we fill those holes, I'm not going to be mad. And that's my thought there. Now, if we were to take, like, Desmond Ridder over George Pickens, yeah, I'd be pissed. Or Matt Corral over George Pickens, yeah, I'd be upset. Mm-hmm. But if we don't end up with a wide receiver because we focused on defense in the first 3 picks, yeah, I'd be all right with that. What about you?
Fair enough. I just really like the receivers at the top of this class. So, and I feel
you got to go up to get them.
Yeah, you're gonna. I'm
like
not
at
sure
best with where you are at 32, at where you are at 32, your best options are going to be like Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson, or George Pickens. Like you're not getting Treylon Burks or Wilson or Olave. You're not getting those guys.
Which is again part of the reason I want us to be active on day one. But like if we were to stay put, and I'm not going to advocate us forcing a receiver pick on day one if my top guys are off the board. But I would really like to see us try to go after one of those guys because I do feel like our offense is getting really close. Sans quarterback. I'd like to throw on that out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I'd like to see the Lions get a receiver, but I know how many holes we have on defense, so it is what it is. But anyways, that is going to close it out for this week, guys. Thank you for listening. We hope the Lions fulfill our dreams on Thursday. But follow us on Twitter at RealFanReport. Andrew, thank you for joining me. Thank you to you guys for listening. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast as always. And thank you to my dog for joining us as well. His name is Zeddy. Yes, he's named after Zetterberg.
He literally looks like he's sitting on your shoulder in the Zoom cam right now.
He's actually sitting on a chair right behind me.
Yeah.
But follow us on Twitter at RealFanReport. We will catch you guys next week. This has been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
For fans.
Have a good one, guys. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the draft. Peace out.